What do the Liberal Democrats stand for?
Well, I think the key things that the Liberal Democrats stand for are freedom. That's the core value. And that's really about extending people's capacity to be individual, to take choices for themselves, to have chances in their life, and of course freedom from oppression, freedom from excessive state power. I think secondly it's fairness, because you can't have a society which does genuinely offer freedom to people without having a commitment to fairness, and I think that that's something which is coming back into much of what we're saying publicly. I was very pleased to see Vince Cable and the Treasury team, for example, commissioning a poll which shows that 88% of British people think that our society is now too unfair. The gap between rich and poor has grown too wide. So fairness is very crucial. And I think also green, free, fair and green. Greenery is absolutely essential part of our whole DNA, because we have to hold our world in trust for future generations, for our children, our grandchildren. We can't go through the planet as if there was no tomorrow. And in doing that, we have to make sure that we tackle particularly the threat of climate change, not just on the environmental front, but that's the overwhelming threat. And we have to make sure that we get the opportunity to put into practice the sort of things which we voted for here in Brighton this week, the Zero Carbon Britain and the package, which really will put us on that route march towards a zero carbon economy.
What do the Liberal Democrats stand for?
I think they stand for a society where people are able to pursue their dreams, their hopes, fulfil their own potential, free of prejudice, disadvantage and needless government interference. It's a vision which is bottom-up, not top-down. It believes in individuals, not systems, which believes in the genius of human innovation, of community, as opposed to government diktat.
Which party should the Lib Dems go into coalition with?
Well, you're assuming that the Liberal Democrats would necessarily be in a position to go into coalition with anybody. I don't think, given our culture, our political culture, that we're in a position to go into coalition with this system. I think if you want a system which encourages coalitions, then you have to have the sort of changes which every other European democracy has already been through. Electoral reform, written constitution, fixed-term parliaments. Those sort of things are essential if you're going to create a culture of trust between parties and a genuine cultural pluralism. So I think the question, I maybe say, well, is a false one. It's not a question of which party you go to coalition with, although I wouldn't rule out the possibility that Labour and the Conservatives go into coalition together, and there have been a number of local authorities, Wrexham, Rochdale, up in Scotland and Dunbartonshire, for example, where Labour and the Tories have done deals to exclude the Liberal Democrats. And the great thing about that, of course, is we would go into opposition, and boy, we don't stay in opposition for very long afterwards.
Which party should we go into for a coalition in some future point?
We're not going to be in a position to sort of go eeny, meeny, miny, mo. What people keep forgetting in all of this is that the electorate, who are the boss, will have delivered a result which will then put the onus on one of the other two parties to decide whether they either want to talk to each other or whether they want to talk to us. So I think we really do need to get away from this idea that somehow the onus is on us to sort of plump for one or the other of the parties, when, as is right in a democracy, it'll be the electorate which will determine the terms of trade.